Um, just suffice it to say that there was a moment when I felt I should return to Ghana to help with development. Um, but that moment was it wasn't an exact point in time. It was a period. And this is something that grew over time after my first child was born. So when my son was born, he was born shortly after crises in Rwanda, Somalia, and other places in Africa. So there was a lot of bad news coming out of Africa. And I had this African child, and I was wondering, what does the state of Africa mean for the future generations that are coming? And how do we change the narrative in Africa for the sake of future generations? And so I was looking at this one child and thinking about generations and feeling a little bit guilty that, I'd left Ghana. I was in a career at Microsoft. And, if you meet Ghanaians abroad, we talk a lot about all the things that need to be better back home in Ghana. And if you meet Nigerians abroad, they do the same. But not many of us decide to return to actually be part of the solution. And I felt that I should be part of the solution. So I asked my wife about it, and she's American. She immediately agreed. And the interesting thing is, when she agreed, then I sort of I stepped back. I got cold feet, and it took me a year and a half after she had agreed before I actually picked up the courage to leave Microsoft. Now, the reason I settled on setting up a university was, in talking with many people in Ghana about the challenges in the country, it seemed that leadership was a fundamental issue. So if you go and you see a problem, like there's no running water in some community, and you ask, well, why is this the way it is? You get a set of answers. Then you take those answers and ask why again. You get another set of answers. But very quickly, it would settle on, well, the people in charge have accepted the status quo, or there's some corruption involved. And this answer seemed to come up for just about any problem that I would discuss with anybody. And so I decided that, well, actually, there's a leadership problem. Leadership is defined by the people in charge, people who have influence, people who have the mandate to fix things and build things and so on, not doing that. And those people in charge were among a very small cohort who had had a post-secondary education. And so I felt that maybe there's something about post-secondary education that needs to change, to focus more on problem solving, to focus more on ethics, to focus more on, this sort of critical thinking and analysis, and how to build a can-do spirit in future generations of leaders. And I decided to give that a try. And essentially to bring the kind of education that I had experienced in the United States to Ghana and demonstrate a new way of teaching and learning, a new way of sort of fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. And maybe this would make a change. So this is really what the driving motivation for Ashesi was. And my first problem was picking up the courage to leave what I was doing. Okay. So that was my first big problem. And the way I addressed that problem is eventually I asked myself, why am I hesitating? And the answer was, because I'm afraid. A fear is a fine thing. It's a useful thing. It helps you avoid danger, right? We're all here because somebody avoided danger. However, fear can also block you from doing things that you might be able to do. And so I decided to manage that fear. And the way I managed that fear was to go to business school. because what I was afraid of was I was afraid of failing. And so I said, okay, well, let me figure out how to minimize the chances of failure by getting better understanding of how to do this. And I had this mental model of, if you're going to go climb Mount Everest, you don't just get up one day and go climb the mountain, right? You go and study about this. You read about other people who've done it before. You ideally find a partner who's going to come on the journey with you. You'll train your body and your mind, gather resources, and eventually you go to the mountain and you find a Sherpa to guide you up, right? I mean, this is how you do really difficult things. And so I was trying to do the equivalent of that. Go study about how organizations work, find a partner. I sort of had a partner with my wife because she'd agreed, but I needed a co-founder, and I needed people to guide me up this mountain. And so that's what I did. And I came out of business school with a business plan. I had a board set up before I left business school. I had a team of architecture students to help me with initial campus design ideas. And I went back to Seattle, set up a foundation, and started to gather the resources necessary to embark on this journey. And then I came to Ghana, set up an advisory board here at my Sherpas, right, to guide me, and got started. So that was the Ashesi journey.